Good afternoon, everybody. Hello, Maple Leaf employees. Thanks for taking the time to be with us here today. And thanks for hosting us here at Maple Leaf's Brandon facility. We're here with a simple message. We, as your provincial government, are going to support your jobs and to support our economy. And to you and to everyone else across this amazing country, we have another simple message. Canada will always be the true north, strong and free, and we will never be the 51st state. We're proud of this country. We're proud of the pork products that you produce. We're proud of our hockey, and we're proud of your jobs. And with all the uncertainty that's going on, the announcement that's going to be coming today from the Trump administration in the United States of America, we're here to share some of our plans for how we protect Manitoba, we protect your jobs, and we continue to build our economy. So your jobs are super important. And the base message that I want to share to each and every one of you is this. We're going to work together. We're going to work together as all levels of government, great employers like Maple Leaf, unions like UFCW, so that we can deliver on a very simple promise, that your jobs are going to be here today, your jobs will be here tomorrow, and your jobs will continue to be here long after Donald Trump leaves office. So let's work together. We've been standing up a response to the Trump tariffs, as well as the tariffs that are being applied by the People's Republic of China, to ensure that the pork industry, the ag industry, and that Maple Leaf, as well as all the hardworking people who come here each and every day, can keep your head up. And so already, what we've done is we've brought in tax breaks so that employers like Maple Leaf can keep cash on hand and keep that money hitting your bank accounts on payday. At the same time, we know that workers, you, the average Manitoban out there, needs help each and every month. And so that's why our budget this year has a lot of help for the average hardworking Manitoba. In this year's budget, we brought in a $1,600 tax credit on your property tax bills. So at a time where life is getting more expensive, we're ensuring that you're going to save more money. You're going to get $1,500 off your tax bill this year, and then $1,600 off your property taxes next year. And at the same time, we brought in a 10% cut to the provincial gas tax on a permanent basis to ensure that you start to see lower gas prices and you save every single time you go to the pump. So whether it's driving to work, whether it's your home costs, whether it's heating your home with our hydro rate freeze, we're there to help you keep money in your pocket so that you can manage on the personal level those month-to-month bills that you have to take care of as we manage the big picture economic situation with respect to what Donald Trump is announcing today. So a lot of people have been feeling that there's uncertainty. A lot of people have been feeling that the future has a lot of risk because of what Donald Trump has announced. And so today, we're announcing specific programs for the agriculture sector here in Manitoba. Our budget, our new budget for 2025, has $140 million in business risk management supports, programs like Agri-Invest and Agri-Stability. And the news that the federal government is going to be lifting the cap and lifting the threshold that triggers Agri-Stability meant that our great Ag Minister, Ron Kostishin, as well as our team, are working together to match that initiative. So that represents another $10.7 million that the provincial government is bringing forward to support pork producers, agricultural producers, and to support jobs in facilities like this one. Our budget this year, 2025 budget, also had a $100 million contingency reserve fund added for the ag industry. So when you put all these initiatives together, $76 million for ag insurance, $16 million for ag invest, the $10.7 million top up in response to the federal program changes that the Prime Minister's announced, you put that all together, there's $250 million in potential supports for the agricultural industry that we're bringing forward to protect our economy and to protect your jobs against tariffs. We know that there's an important role to play for government. We know that there's going to be a need for us to stand up in the face of tariffs and offer those sorts of grants and loans and initiatives to keep people working. But the thing that I know about Manitobans is this, including the hardworking people here at Maple Leaf, is that while sometimes you may need to ask for help, I know that the hard work and value that the average person has out there says that if they have the opportunity to go to work, make something, sell it on the market, and earn their pay the good old-fashioned way, that'll always be the first choice of people in this province. And so this $250 million that I'm announcing are supports to protect our agricultural sector in the face of whatever the PRC tariffs or whatever the Trump tariffs end up bringing forward over the course of this year. And we're going to work together to ensure that your jobs and your industry are here today, tomorrow, and for generations to come.
Hear, hear.
And so we're standing up for Westman, we're standing up for Western Canada, we're standing up for this country that we love so much. And it is true when we're talking about some of the biggest global economies out there and going into a very turbulent situation against those much larger economies, Manitoba and Canada, we're going to have to be smart. But the way that we're going to get through this period is the same way that we've overcome any challenge over the course of our history, and that's by working together. So let's work together as the workers, let's work together as the employers, let's work together as the agricultural producers who are the backbone of our economy, and let's keep building up the true north strong and free, this amazing country that we love so much, Canada. Et puis, en tant qu'une province bilingue, nous serons toujours là pour appuyer notre économie pour tout le monde, incluant les communautés bilingues dans le Manitoba. Alors, ces investissements pour les métiers agricoles, pour les usines comme Maple Leaf, seront là pour appuyer tous les Manitoba, incluant la francophonie. Merci beaucoup et vive le Canada! And I don't know how many people here speak French, but I'm sure you understood Vive le Canada. I think we all know that one. So thanks so much to the Maple Leaf employees. One more time, I just want to say how much we appreciate you taking the opportunity to host us here today, taking the time out of your day. And hey, you know, timing is everything in politics. So I'd also like to welcome the Minister of Municipal Relations, Glenn Samard, who's just arrived as well, too. So with that, and again, with a sincere gratitude and appreciation for what you do every day to power the Manitoba economy and what Maple Leaf does to power the Canadian economy, we'll say thanks and we'll open it up for questions.
Mr. Premier, the $10 million here, which is matching funds, or is that 40% of what the feds are putting in for Manitoba?
Yeah, that's the 60-40 split with agri-stability. This reflects the starting point for what the changes are going to be with that higher cap, and then the different threshold at 90% that was announced. So we're looking at, again, what would the starting point be? It's $10.7 million. But as the tariff situation unfolds, as you know, hopefully we get closer to a resolution with the 25% pork tariff from the PRC, as we try to get a resolution with the Trump administration, hopefully we don't have to use those resources and put them out the door. On the other hand, if the situation continues to get more intense over the course of this year, we're going to be there to stand up for your jobs. And in that situation, that $10.7 million that I'm talking about here today, that's the starting point. And we could potentially take it up to that $100 million figure that's in the contingency line of the budget.
So who actually has access to the $10 million, and how does it work? Keeping in mind, a lot of people, agricultural policy might not be their first area of knowledge. So how does it work?
Well, the business risk management programs are there to help cushion a negative impact that the ag producers feel. And that higher threshold means that there can be a bigger payout, or the higher cap rather means that there can be a bigger payout. The different threshold means that we're going to be more responsive to this current tariff situation. Again, the details of ag policy are so nuanced. I myself am up here in front of a crowd of people trying to keep the cap and the threshold safe or straight. But the bottom line is this. We're putting money out the door to keep people working, from people here in the Maple Leaf plant, but also keeping the farmer in the field working as well too, and the pork producer in the barn. And so those sorts of investments with agri-stability, the other business risk management programs, these are ways that we can protect our economy, we can insulate against the shock of tariffs and give our economy time to adjust. Because again, we're always going to be neighbors with the United States of America, and we would love to do trade with them. But in order to keep Maple Leaf workers coming every day to this great facility, if we have to build up the Canadian market, if we have to look at other markets overseas, these investments we make as a government is going to give us time so that our economy can adapt.
And give me more detail on how the $100 million tariff contingencies would be doled out. Who specifically would get them? How would that work?
So those will be for the business risk management programs like Agri-Stability, Agri-Invest, Agri-Recovery. The one we're highlighting today is Agri-Stability. The federal government has made an announcement about a change to the cap and to the threshold. Today we're saying we're serious about matching that effort by the feds. And so we're putting real dollars on the table. We're putting a specific dollar value. At the same time, we're in this situation. If Donald Trump makes an announcement today, what's he going to say tomorrow? What's he going to say an hour later? Nobody knows, right? Nobody can peer into Donald Trump's mind. So that $100 million contingency that we're talking about is what we're prepared to invest in the ag industry to keep plants like Maple Leaf here running and protect these jobs. But at the same time, realistically, best case scenario, we don't have to spend any of it. And we can use that money towards workforce development and accessing international markets. But if things continue to get more intense, if Donald Trump continues to try to make life more expensive for Americans by adding tariffs, by the way, then we'll be there to protect our Manitoba economy, to keep these great people working, and to make sure that we'll be able to keep facilities like this one in operation long after he leaves office.
Kinew, earlier today you mentioned that you were working with CAP and discussing their list of what they were hoping to see. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on in the background of these ag groups and maybe some of those highlights from their plan?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm very grateful to Keystone Ag producers, to Manitoba Pork, to the Manitoba beef producers, to everyone, to Maple Leaf who are hosting us here today and who have been engaging with us through this whole roller coaster of the Trump tariffs and the PRC tariffs that we've been seeing. Having that open line of communication, that's how we do that, working together to make Canada strong and to advocate for Team Canada that I've been talking about. And so each industry group has brought forward their priorities, canola being another important group that we've been engaging with really particularly on the PRC side of things. And really there's been a whole series of measures, and I think the agri-stability announcement that we're keying in on today and the overall, up to $250 million invested into ag business risk management programs reflect what we've been hearing from producers and from their sectoral council agencies. CAP in particular set down into black and white, Keystone Ag producers, a bunch of recommendations about building up our industry here in Manitoba, about lobbying our allies in the United States of America, and a whole other suite of measures. We looked at them and we said, yep. Each one of these things makes sense. And so I appreciate CAP bringing forward the suggestions. And so we're proud to commit that we're going to act right away on the voice of ag to lobby and to act, to invest, and to protect. And on that one point in particular, I really have to shout out Keystone Ag and Manitoba Beef, our Minister of Ag, so many people who have been lobbying leaders in the United States of America at the state level, in the American Senate, the Congress, in the Trump administration proper. We were there at the White House as the premiers. And what we heard to a single person was, we love Canada, we don't like the Trump tariffs. And then we're like, okay, great, say something publicly, and they're like, no way. So we're also here today saying to our American friends who know that our ag industry, our pork industry in particular, is highly integrated across that US-Canada border, we're saying, hey, today on Trump Tariff Day, come on out. It's okay to speak up. It's okay to defend your pork producers. It's okay to defend your pork industry, because we're fighting for industry and producers here on the Canadian side of the border. And we got that warm and hearty handshake extended to our American friends to start giving voice to the agriculture industry down there as well too.
The hog industry in Brandon and Equal is very important to Western Manitoba. Can you give us any idea if Manitoba and the Ag Department are involved in talks with other markets, foreign markets, Japan, Korea, on behalf of Maple Leaf, on behalf of Thailand?
Yeah, I think there's a lot we can point to here. And again, I want to thank Maple Leaf, Manitoba Pork, and the producers themselves for the engagement, the workers for coming out today. UFCW has been there shoulder to shoulder with us, advocating in the States, and just this week, the AFL-CIO made a strong statement. So the Voice of Labor in America condemned the Trump tariffs as well, and that's a credit to Jeff's organization and to Be Brusque with the Canada Labour Council and the work that Premier Eby and I did to bring union voices from the States together. So we're seeing some progress, but there's a lot more work to do. Pork in Manitoba, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars to the Manitoba economy. Just at lunch today, we were talking about the export market in Japan. We're talking about the export market to South Korea, the European Union. Again, some of those Asian markets that we can access, they seem like the real opportunity in the immediate term. EU, they have a bunch of non-tariff barriers that we want to try to overcome, so that might be a longer-term opportunity. But the bottom line is this: we got to pursue all fronts. We got to build up the Canadian customer base. We got to encourage people, hey, you love bacon, buy Canadian bacon, buy Maple Leaf bacon. I'm going to the store, I'm looking for the Maple Leaf label just like you, and I'm sure all these hardworking people would appreciate it if you do the same. Pork chops, put a little soy sauce, sliced ginger, let it marinate. Amazing. Ribs. I'm giving the recipes here, right? Put the ribs on the smoker for about 7 hours. You will thank me. We can build up the Canadian customer base with, great initiatives working together with industry and workers. We can talk about Japan and South Korea, but we still can't give up on the American market because it's so close and it's so large. So we're going to keep that effort on all fronts, trying to make inroads with the Americans, try to expand export markets overseas, and then, of course, to remind Canadians about supporting our pork and producers here.
As I said, the pork industry is very important to Brandon.
Yes.
Including all the markets who help Brandon grow and prosper. Part of the problem with Trump right now, we're too waiting for him to drop the ball. What kind of tariffs we're going to have. How do you manage that and manage expectations for people in this room working in the plant and their jobs and job security when everything?
Yeah, again, today's being built up into like the biggest media day ever. Donald Trump's going to walk out into the Rose Garden and he's going to make his big tariff announcement. But based on what we've seen so far, who's to say he's not going to change his mind an hour later, or a day later, or a month later? So how do we plan for that period? First of all, we work together. Second of all, we've built the budget with that cushion of $100 million for the ag industry in particular, for hundreds of millions of dollars for the rest of our economy when we're thinking about manufacturers and the other people, the energy industry and more who are going to be facing impacts here. But also, we've been doing the advocacy. So for instance, the executive and the leadership of Maple Leaf have made it very clear, if Canadian products produced by somebody like Maple Leaf are going to face a tariff today in the American market, then why would an American producer be allowed to come into the Canadian market and sell in our grocery stores without facing the tariff? So we've been supporting that message, working with the federal government to make sure that the Canadian response is going to be there and strong to support jobs for people who come to work in Brandon and Nipawin and so many other great communities across Western Canada. So for us, again, it's a whole menu of approaches. I think, a year ago at this time, was anyone thinking tariff? Was that a part of your normal, everyday, conversation at the dinner table? But this is a reality in 2025, so how do we work together? We got the counterpunch, we got the protection for our workers here, and then we got building for the future, export markets, but also here at home.
Mr. Premier, what was the point of a one-year hydro rate freeze if hydro plans to raise rates almost 11% over the next 3 years?
The hydro priority for us is to save people money. Manitoba Hydro exists to deliver affordable electricity rates, and that's the reason why it's public, and that's why Manitoba Hydro will remain public forever and ever, amen, in Manitoba. Because this is something that we all own together to ensure that we're not seeing really high energy bills that you have to pay each and every month. So for us, what are the ways that we can help Manitoba Hydro keep your hydro bills affordable? Well, one, we froze hydro rates this year. Second, the new Prime Minister has announced that the carbon tax is coming off home heating as well. And so we've made it very clear to Hydro that we don't want them to wait to pass on those savings to consumers, that they're going to start to remove the carbon tax from hydro bills immediately. And when it comes to the future year rate increases, we're looking at a balance between how do we keep your hydro bill as low as possible while making sure there's a reliability. When you flip the light switch, that the light turns on, right? At the end of the day, reliability is something that most of us don't think about, but it's the most important thing in the world when it's not there. If you ever turn that light switch or you try and put the thermostat up and it doesn't work in the winter, it's going to be the most important thing to you during a Manitoba January or February. So we're investing in Manitoba Hydro long-term to build it up. This year we've frozen your hydro bills, and your hydro bills are going to be cheap for generations to come because of the investments we're making.
Forgive me, I'm going to restate the question because I heard that answer from you before. Hydro needs $31 billion to build up electricity generating capacity to maintain its existing infrastructure. Its rate hikes are going to be higher in the next couple of years because of your rate.
No, false. False.
Okay, tell me
Categorically false.
for getting there.
Yeah.
Why that's false. Give me the math.
Okay, first of all, the math is if you look at the average over the 4-year period, it's going to be lower than what the PCs did. So it's cheaper under us than it ever was under the PCs. The PCs, by the way, never built a single megawatt, never built a single kilowatt, never built a single watt of generating capacity in Manitoba over the past, not just Stephenson and Pallister times in office, but even going back under Philman. Never added to the grid at all. We're building it up because if you want to build the Manitoba economy, you want to have factories like this one, you want to have more housing, you want to bring more industry like carbon capture to help the Coke plant down the street, you need power. We're building up hydro. And we got to look at this as a positive part. We have to look at this in a positive way. $30 billion. That's $31 billion that we're going to be spending in prioritizing Canadian infrastructure. We're going to be buying $31 billion worth of Canadian steel, $31 billion worth of Canadian transformers, $31 billion worth of concrete. And we're going to be hiring $31 billion of tradespeople and electricians to build the Manitoba hydro infrastructure for the future. So when you talk about the equation that we're looking at over this 4-year period that we've been honored to serve the people of Manitoba, here's what it is. Cheaper hydro bills than you would have got under the other guys, and billions of dollars in investment putting people to work right across this great province. Sounds like a win-win to me.
So speaking of that bill, $1.4 billion proposed for more fuel burning plants, because otherwise we're going to be having brownouts by 2030.
Yep.
How do you reconcile that with your stated goal of having hydro weaned off of fossil fuels by 2035?
Well, I think that you've seen the application to the Public Utilities Board, and it's a thermal generating station at this point. Is it going to be hydrogen? Is it going to be natural gas? Is it going to be some sort of miracle fuel? Nobody knows at this point. Odds are, you see what happens in the energy industry right now. Again, the hydrogen opportunity is really exciting potentially for Manitoba, but that industry is not there yet. So then we look at natural gas, and we look at the opportunities that we have in front of us. The reality is this: we're going to add 500 megawatts to the grid with a thermal generation facility here in Brandon, right? So you're going to see more electricity added to Brandon's Manitoba hydropower. We're adding the PACE project outside of Portage la Prairie, which means more power is going to come into Westman, to the Brandon market in particular. Hundreds of millions of dollars of construction activity there. So again, you're going to get more power into the region that way. And then again, longer term, we have to look at what's happening south of the border. We have to look at the American situation and things that we might have thought of in the past a certain way, the balance between renewables and carbon-based fuel. I think given what we're seeing with Trump, we have to be able to put the future power needs of our province as the first priority and make sure that we have everything that we need by way of electricity to build Manitoba up for the future.
I mean, you mean canceling future hydro export contracts and not renewing them? Is that
I think we'll have plenty to say about Manitoba Hydro next week. Bartley, look at this flag. I want to see this all over CBC's webpage and 6 o'clock news tonight, okay? I don't want to see Donald Trump in the Rose Garden. I want to see Maple Leaf workers, Maple Leaf flag, and I want the Canadian broadcaster to be the one that is sharing that message with people across the country. And then CTV can have it, and the Brandon Sun can have it, and everybody will rally around the flag, but we'll talk about hydro next week, and I know we'll have a great discussion when we get into the hydro details. We're here on Tariffs. This is the biggest media day, and we're here in Brandon. Trump is going to make the world-changing announcement, and we chose to be here with you. So that's got to count for something.
The impression you were going to be mothballing the Brandon plant here by 2035. Now, we're not seeing hydros only. Is that not the case anymore?
You're talking about the gas generating facility? Yeah, I think that's not the case anymore. Yeah, so just to be clear, when I'm talking to Bart about the 500 megs of thermal generation here in Brandon, I'm talking about the Brandon facility getting a major upgrade. So it's not that we're going to take anything away in terms of power generating capacity here in the Westman region. We're actually going to be doubling down on it to make sure that there's more power for the economy, more opportunities for workers. Correct. Yeah. Yeah, like the generating capacity is probably going to double, thereabouts. But again, the construction jobs, the engineering activity, all of that is going to increase as well too. Well, at this point, we're talking thermal generation, which means we're trying to keep the options open. Like if the hydrogen industry, and I know there are companies kicking the tires about standing up hydrogen facilities in the Brandon area. If that hydrogen industry were to take off and we could use hydrogen as a clean fuel source for this thermal facility, that would be great. On the other hand, if that industry is not ready yet and we need to look at natural gas, we're going to do what we need to do to keep the Westman economy growing and to keep people like the ones who are here today working.
When speaking of affordability, there's a lot of people in districts with their school taxes going up, sometimes double, triple, depending on the value of their home. Your change to the $1,600 credit from a 50% credit means larger and more valuable properties are getting hit a lot more. We're seeing people in Victoria Beach today say that they're getting triple their bills. Just what do you have to say to people that are looking at actually paying a lot more on their total municipal and school property taxes than they were before?
So if you live here in Brandon, look at your property tax bill compared to last year and see how that $1,500 tax credit works for you. And then next year, look at how the $1,600, the increase to $1,600 works for you. When you're talking about Dauphin, when you're talking about Morden and Winkler, when you're talking about Thompson, you go to communities right across this great province, most communities are going to see 80%, 90% of people better off under this approach. And 100% of Manitobans are going to be better off because schools are getting properly funded under our government. And there's a school food program in every single school across Manitoba. So when we're talking about win-win, and we're saving you money on your property tax bill at the same time that schools are not facing the cutbacks that they were facing in the past, that sounds like the way you build a Manitoba economy to me. That sounds like a win-win. Okay, we're going to go to Zoom.
Thank you, Premier. We have a couple of reporters on the call. Up first with one question, one follow-up from the Winnipeg Free Press, Carol Sanders.
Hi, Premier. I'm just wondering, where will you be listening, hearing, reading about the tariffs when they're announced later this afternoon in the U.S.? Where will you be? How will you be getting your information?
Well, I think like everyone else, I'll be watching my phone and the cable news network to see the president make the announcement. But our investments in the ag industry, our investments to support workers like we're joined with here at the Maple Leaf plant, will be there and rock solid no matter what Donald Trump does today, tomorrow, or going forward into the future.
And so just to be clear, the $10 million that's announced today, that's an increase to agri-stability, and that's mentioned in the budget.
This 10.7 million is above what was in the budget. So what was in the budget was 140 million. So today we're saying 10.7 million as a starting point to respond to the tariff threat. And that reflects our matching the increased threshold and increased cap that the federal government is also going to do. And I'm desperately trying to find a way to make this answer more interesting, because repeating all these details is, it's a bit rough.
Well, pardon me, but the audio cut out for a good portion of what you were saying earlier with the initial announcement.
You want to do the thing with Bart and the Maple Leaf flag again? I can do that all day.
No, I heard that. That was fine. Thank you.
Too much fun, Bart.
Okay, up next from Global, Iris.
Hello, Premier. You mentioned working to get EU and Asian markets to export pork, but the American market is just too big. We don't want to avoid that relationship altogether. Can you just go into more detail about what those new export markets, like how short term, how long can we use our relationship with those markets before we're going to have to look back to the U.S. potentially?
Well, the thing that Donald Trump needs to understand is that the weanling starts its life here in Manitoba, and then it crosses the border, right? And then it's a pork producer in Iowa who is raising the pig, right? At the same time, when we talk about a company like Maple Leaf or some of our other packagers in Manitoba, we're talking about vertical integration. And every step along that supply chain can see goods moving back and forth across the border. So for Donald Trump to announce tariffs on ag products, he's hurting a lot of hardworking farmers in the states that sent him to the White House. And so our first message on Tariff Day is that needs to stop, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for us as Canadians. And once the people who voted for Donald Trump start to pay attention to what's happening, they're going to be pretty upset. When we talk about export opportunities across the world, Japan, South Korea, many other markets are really, really attractive for us because they view Canadian pork as a quality product. We're talking about we're like a French wine, how that's seen by Canadians when we're talking about being able to export to other countries. So again, rush to the grocery store now and buy all the bacon you can, because we're going to be trying to export a lot of it too, and I'd hate to see Canadians miss out.
That's all me. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. Moving next to Joshua Jackson from the Niqua Band.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Premier. Looking ahead, how confident are you that this support, combined with other efforts, will provide lasting stability and growth for Manitoba's agricultural industry, specifically the pork industry?
Yeah, and I know that this is huge for Niqua, and what I would say to people in the Niqua area, as well as Brandon and right across Manitoba, is that I'm confident the pork industry is going to make it through this period stronger than ever. What I don't think is going to make it through is the ability for Donald Trump to convey to his voters in these Midwestern red states that tariffs are a good idea. They might be buying that today, but once they start to see the impact on the pork industry in Iowa and some of the other Midwestern ag states, there's going to be a real accountability conversation that they want to have. So for the meantime, what we're doing, we're investing in the agriculture industry. We're investing in the pork industry here in the province to get us through this period of turbulence. So part of that means making sure we lean into those export opportunities, whether it's in South Korea or Japan or potentially the EU if we can overcome some of the issues that they're throwing at us. But the reality is we're patient with our American friends. We know that they're going to be a good trading partner in the long term, and so we'll keep investing in people's jobs here so that we weather the storm and we can see that good times and sunshine on the other side.
And just to follow up here, you specifically mentioned the United States. What can you kind of say about the tariffs on the pork industry that have been in place from China?
Yeah, Canada is facing a trade war on two fronts. And when you talk about the pork industry, you're talking about the PRC, the People's Republic of China, putting a tariff on us, putting a tariff on canola as well. And we're looking at what Donald Trump is doing on the American side to threaten the Canadian economy. So when you're talking about two of the biggest economies around the world, and we're here as little old Manitoba in the middle, how do we overcome that situation? It's by sticking together. It's by supporting our employers and our employees, and it's by making sure that we're smart with your tax dollars and putting those to work in our communities to build our economy, to protect our jobs, and to stick up for ourselves. And we always use the hockey analogy. Everybody's saying elbows up these days. But what I would say to our American friends, because we know that we're still going to be their neighbors and we're still going to be their allies after this Trump tariff dispute is over, what I would say is this: we are a nation of hockey players. That means that if we don't even go looking for the scrap, but the scrap finds us, we know how to handle ourselves. But at the same time, once the game is over, we know how to go out for beers together at the end of that.
And closing things out, our final reporter on the call, Ed White from Reuters. Ed, do you have a question?
Hi, thanks for taking the question, Mr. Premier. Manitoba has a North America leading weanling piglet business, but it has a terrible Achilles heel, which is completely reliant on access to the U.S. market, which right now is a scary position to be in. At the same time, plants like Maple Leaf and Brandon are running less than they would like to because they can't get enough hogs because we don't have enough feeder barns in Manitoba or the rest of Western Canada to feed out pigs here, to process here. Is your government thinking of doing anything to, I guess, get more feeder capacity in Canada for both the processors and for the farmers to have less of a worry in these ways?
Well, the first thing that the Ag Minister, Ron Kostishin, and I did was we attended a great pork luncheon today, which is not only stimulating demand in the pork industry, but is also, I think, encouraging some of those producers to make sure that they meet the demand for facilities like this one. Actually, we're talking, one of the colonies that had a couple of prizes taken home at that contest is one of the feeders to this plant here, which is great to see. But I just want to make sure that when the story gets reported, that you are clear that a lot of Manitoba's pork products do get exported to other markets overseas. The reason why the PRC is targeting pork is because we actually export a lot to China. Japan is a huge market for Manitoba pork, and they view Manitoba pork as a premium product in the Japanese market. South Korea, much the same way. So while the American tariff threat is real and is motivating us to do things like this $10.7 million additional investment in agri-stability, we have to keep an eye towards growing the export market share as well as cultivating more people to eat pork here in Manitoba and across Canada. So again, there's millions and millions of hogs that we're talking about, billions and billions of dollars for Manitoba's pork industry. And it's really, really significant to the Canadian economy. We talk about ag being the backbone of Manitoba's economy. And we're making the investments to keep people working, whether it's the folks at the maple leaf plant here in Brandon, it's the farmer in the field, or it's the person raising the hog in the barn.
And are you concerned that the actions like you're seeing from the Trump White House right now, that the belligerence towards Canada as a trading partner will put off farmers and companies like Maple Leaf investing more in their production and their facilities, because you never know what's going to happen in the politics down south, which is something we haven't had to worry about much since 1988.
I think our government is working hard to make sure that public dollars are going to invest in building up our economy so that private capital can continue to invest in our Canadian economy. And so we're here saying that we're going to ensure that the business risk management programs are strong so that a company like Maple Leaf or other pork processors can make the decision to invest in the next generation. And when you talk about belligerence, what I would say is this. Again, we can have it out at the trade negotiating table, and we can talk about the USMCA, or we can talk about trade irritants, or we can talk about tariffs and things like that. But one thing that is not on the table is Canadian sovereignty. Canada will never be the 51st state. And so long as Donald Trump is trying to disrespect our country like that, he's going to have to put up with us chirping right back. And so he can do his signing down south, and we'll be posting our social media videos, making sure that everybody knows we got game too.
Question?
Thanks so much.
Thank you. That concludes the questions on Zoom.
Okay, thanks everybody. That went longer than expected, but I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day.